host, Effie Pilarinu, and today I have a great pleasure to connect, in this digital world that has its advantages, that we are connecting so much easier with people around the world. So today I have the pleasure to connect with Roberto Capodieci, if
Perfect.
I'm pronouncing it correctly, who is in Singapore. The recording of our fireside chat is today around 375 beats, Roberto.
Right.
Right? And we'll explain what that is. And the recording will be published on my usual publishing schedule, which is every Wednesday around 500 beats. So welcome, Roberto, and tell everybody how you taught me about what beats are, because, we are becoming cyborgs. We live on the internet, so we should have a native internet time. So tell us the story.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure. And yes, every time there is a discussion where there is a moment to set at what time to have a call or something, I recall something. I think I was a teenager, 20 something, so it was quite a lot of years ago, that the Swatch, the Swiss company, came out with this fantastic idea of an internet time. You had the @ symbol before and then divided the day in 1000 bits, and each bit so end up to be a minute and something. And that will make no time zone difference. It will be always the same time anywhere around the world. So it will be very easy to say, okay, let's chat at 620 bits or whatever it is. And people will have a way to find a common time easily. And I think this fantastic idea, which Swatch never abandoned, is still supported as of today, never got the attention it deserved, because I do believe he arrived too early. When, yes, internet was used, but people were not internationally connected as much as now. Low-cost airline weren't there. People didn't move internationally as much as they do today. And I suggest Watch to revamp this idea and make a mobile app or something, because I think it would be amazing to look at my cell phone and see my local time, the time in some few other city, but also the bit time directly there on my phone. It would be fantastic.
I think, we are so much more native. It has changed our life, right? There's all this discussion about who is a digital native and who isn't. And obviously, it's not a question of age, that we understand. But again, I think that we should have that. Roberto, we were connected through a mutual friend, Nectarios Lolios, and I'm very happy to see the work that you're doing, because, as I already mentioned to you, I'm very much into following all innovations in fintech. This is the space where I come from, but of course, blockchain is one of the big technologies that is disrupting capital markets and, I guess, all industries. And I'm more interested in the principles, in the Pandora box that blockchain has opened in our thinking and in the way we are doing business, in the way we're organizing and collaborating, and not so much on the trading aspect. Again, don't get me wrong, I'm a trader by nature, but let's not lose sight of the bigger change. So tell us a little bit about, what is it? Blockchain.
Right.
You have so many initiatives and the book on blockchain. Just tell us a little bit the journey and where you put your energy and where your passion is.
Absolutely. But first of all, one thing that you pointed out is absolutely true. There is a Pandora box of things that blockchain can bring to us. And thank God, the blockchain came out of a financial system. I always tell people when this Satoshi Nakamoto team or person created Bitcoin had a problem to solve. They invented blockchain to solve the problem, but that wasn't their final project. If a blockchain was invented for an hairdresser solution or something else, it probably would have never become popular. It became popular because it was behind electronic money, which raised a lot of attention. So that's good, but the things that the blockchain can do are many more than just cryptocurrency, and there is the need for people to dissociate the idea of blockchain is cryptocurrency, because blockchain is not cryptocurrency. Blockchain is like a database. Cryptocurrency is like a particular website that use a database is one of the use cases for blockchain. So in the principle myself, I am into decentralization, decentralized system, since before blockchain, when torrent was the first protocol to get a peer-to-peer network to hold files and distribute files without one central server that controlled the system. That was the interesting things. And this brought me to be in the discussion with people that at the early days were doing blockchain, and obviously blockchain was one step ahead. I've been working with blockchain since the early days. My goal always to create solution outside the financial world. So document management, document flow, identity. And the big revolution the blockchain is bringing, we are in the information age. So starting from digitizing documents or things that were analog before, then transmitting them over the internet. And now blockchain brings the capacity to create singularity, a unique item in the internet. If I have an MP3 file and make a copy to 5 friends, we have each the MP3 file, but I cannot make a copy of a Bitcoin and give it to 5 friends. Once I give my Bitcoin to somebody else, I don't have it anymore. And in a digital world, the capacity to have something that is unique is incredibly big. So this can apply to anything that can must be unique, must be non-fungible if you want, given the trend that lately we had with these non-fungible tokens where art and other things have been traded over the blockchain. And this is the gateway to so many other things that blockchain can do. When we dismantle how technologically is built, we understand that each part can serve a very big part of what is needed to decentralize systems, decentralize services, and so on and so forth.
Very interesting, Roberto. So you take it at a much broader level than, as you said, let's say the payments sector, which always is core to an economy and will remain core. You are talking about decentralizing all sorts of processes, and your insight is that the potential of these unique non-fungible items, native items that can be created beyond the use cases that we realize today, that is the big opening that blockchain thinking or principles brings us. Tell me about all these initiatives that I see. I see the Zoo BC or Zoo blockchain. I see, I don't know how to pronounce these acronyms, the December blockchain.
Decentralized blockchain. Yeah, there is a long journey toward decentralization that we started a few years ago. And this journey is a long journey. It's not something that happened overnight. There is the need of several aspects, some technological aspects, some cultural aspects, some adoption aspects, in order to move from the centralized world that we have to a decentralized world that we want to reach. So it is, to me, part of the evolution of the information age that we are in. So it's inevitable. We can look at the events, for example, like Donald Trump being banned from Twitter. You say, what has decentralization to do with this? But if you look the CEO of Twitter is investing a lot of money to get the content of Twitter in a decentralized system. So he has no more direct responsibility of what people post because he has no control over it. So decentralizing means removing the responsibility, the control from a specific company or person, and is in the hand of the public, which makes the responsibility go just down to the single individual that use the decentralized system, which is more correct, in my opinion. The responsibility means, as we know, in Bitcoin means if I lose my key, I lose my Bitcoin. I cannot call Mr. Joseph Bitcoin and ask him to please reset my password or things like that. Once we move this paradigm to other things, content management, I have my storage online in a decentralized system, I need to take responsibility of conserving my key to access to make it such a way that is safe. So we move this responsibility from a central system to a person, to the individual user that are then part of this network that makes things possible. So the steps to get there, Blockchain Zoo is a company that does implementation and customization of blockchain. Means a blockchain with custom transaction types. A transaction type in a blockchain means in a Bitcoin is I'm sending you 1 Bitcoin. But in a blockchain, the manager, for example, warehouse receipts, titles, means is the title approved, is being confirmed, is the person authorized to sign, there is the need of more people. So there is all the procedure that are there can be embedded in a transaction that the blockchain does. So that's what we've been doing using other open source platform until we realized that we saw all the pain points, we saw all the risk of security. We wanted to build our own system, given all the experience we did. So we started this with ZooBC. ZooBC went from a conceptual idea to something concrete. The main net started in March. And now we're moving to the second phase, which is the decentralized blockchain. Decentralization blockchain is for decentralized application. It's going to launch in December 2022. And then there is going to be a third phase and so on up to 5 phases. Each phase is accompanied by a book that we wrote. The first volume is new strategies on blockchain to understand that the technology that was invented at the beginning was just to do cryptocurrency. If we want to do other things, we need to have new technology. So it goes through an analysis of the consensus mechanics that are there, what are good, what is bad, where we need to move in what direction. And then we follow up by doing it as well. So we travel parallel between preaching and doing, and hopefully we do it right.
Roberto, when I hear you, you make it seem very clear and simple. Obviously, the experience that you have shows, because you talk about what, you know, for a layman are complicated mechanisms, the consensus mechanisms, the peer-to-peer mechanisms, and so on, and you make it seem pretty clear and simple. What I'm hearing from you is that the consensus mechanism that you have developed, which I believe is called proof of what? Of participation.
Absolutely right. Yes.
Proof of participation is suitable, is the one that is more suitable for the kinds, for decentralizing processes like you mentioned, you know, around documents, around invoices, around those types of titles and so on, rather than more suitable for micropayments, for example, or you know, those types of processes that are different in nature. And do you believe that we will be in a world where we will have different consensus mechanisms to decentralize different kinds of processes?
Yeah, absolutely. We wanted to decouple cryptocurrency from the core mechanics of consensus. First of all, in 30 seconds, I try to explain consensus to people that don't know, because the word consensus is very misleading. In human terms, to reach consensus, we sit around the table, we discuss, for example, what restaurant to go to dinner tonight. and we arrive to a consensus, and we all agree, and we go. Nodes in a peer-to-peer network, which are actual computer server, cannot sit around the table and discuss. They have a preset rules that in front of an option, of a choice, when rules are executed, theoretically, all the nodes make the same choice. So you guarantee the full network move in the same direction in the moment that there are possibility to choose left or right, black or white, or whatever. So the consensus is a set of rules and system to guarantee that all the network agrees, meaning that make the same choice in front of a transaction. For example, I try to send you 50 Bitcoin, but in my balance I have 0. The network reject my transaction because the rule says there is no balance to make this, as well as if two different nodes propose a new block in the blockchain, there is a mechanics to choose which is the block that should be used compared of the two. And the consensus is very important to be programmed properly because it can be gamed.
Of course.
The biggest nightmare is the double spending. I can spend twice my same Bitcoin, right? And most of the consensus that are there today are based on a financial cost for an attack. So the security is not because it's impossible technically, but it would be financially too expensive. So in the moment that the same blockchain is used for something where there is no value for the cryptocurrency in the blockchain, or the value of the cryptocurrency is very low compared to the titles that the blockchain is managing, then these attacks are possible. And the myth of the fact that the blockchain cannot be attacked falls down, and I'm not just making it up, it's happening frequently with mostly proof of work minor blockchain. But there is, I think it's beautiful to understand technically these mechanics before the voting, because it becomes like a religion, a faith. There is people that is devoted to proof of work because that's the only way that is secure, mostly not understanding very well how is mechanically, technically working, right? Or in what use cases is okay, in what use cases is not okay. So to answer your question, probably yes, there will be new and different systems, platform based on the things that we need to operate. If it's the management of identity, of a document released by the government, or car ownership titles, rather than digital currency issued by central banks, probably each one is going to have his own system, more or less decentralized. But
yeah, very, very interesting. So we can say that, you know, there's a big part about sort of the decoupling of money with the state, and that's a lot of blockchains that are in that sort of group, in that cluster. But then there's many others that have a totally different objective in terms of decentralizing other processes and not the issuance and management of the money supply. So that is, it gives us the perspective, because most people are fixated in the world of decentralizing money and therefore cryptocurrencies and so on. And of course, there's many use cases there beyond the Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies, like, you know, maybe universal basic income or other social sort of initiatives around crowdfunding and so on. What I want to ask you, Roberto, is for people that want to get involved and are not neither technically, you know, involved, or are in this sort of sphere of innovation that is happening. They are the people, so to speak, retail. How can they participate in this bottom-up revolution that is happening in many domains, beyond buying some Bitcoin and seeing, you know, that you can send, you know, money, understanding a digital wallet, understanding the self sovereign ownership and the difference of a wallet, on a blockchain, which of course also is important to learning versus a wallet on, Google Pay or whatever. But do you have any suggestions?
First of all, it is a matter of consciousness on the subject, right? So the people that is pushed toward the decentralized, which most of the time means semi-unregulated or free from roadblocks system. The first part is people that have been suffering in the other side. Like people that has money in the bank and they call the bank gives them hard time to move their money, etc., etc. And at a certain point gets upset and is going to start using cryptocurrency, right? So there where there are decentralized system that get adopted, get trusted. For example, look all the NFT for the trade of art. Now I want to buy a piece of art. There is digital art, which like it or not is today art is digital most of all. So painters don't paint anymore only on canvas, but paint also in a digital way and people can purchase it. I don't need to go to a gallery being blah, blah, blah by somebody or go to search to a location to find the artist in his studio, in his house. But I can purchase art directly online at 3 in the morning because I fall in love with the things and is mine, and I can show up to my friend. The NFT belongs to me. I can print or display my art in a monitor or whatever. So in this way, we have freed the art from all the intermediaries that were there that sometimes can be pleasant. If I want a very curated service, I want the human connection, I can still go to the old style way of doing it. If I want to be independent and by myself without the confrontation with another human, I can go and do my purchase of an NFT online. Let's say that these mechanics once is transported to many other services where I directly choose without the filters of KYC, without the filters of where there the regulator don't step in, because obviously tomorrow there's going to be also regulation toward the centralized system, but they need to think it in a very different way, or because it's unregulated service and simply allow people to access it compared to where today they cannot access it. The centralized system will make people that suffer the transaction done with the middlemen a choice. And people that are the middlemen today, they better evolve and offer the entry point. I remember when there were those shops around the town that allow people to enter the eBay item. There is the guy that helped people to make the online announcement because people were non-familiar with these things. So somebody created this service that which today completely failed because now people is culturally adapted to go directly on eBay to put their item. And I think the evolution is going to go through this thing. Decentralization will need support because people don't directly understand. And the push and the motivation is to free the person from all the procedure and middlemen that there are otherwise. Or is a choice. It's like people that decide to be vegetarian because they don't want to hurt the animal, or having bio-organic food because they don't want intensive cultivation. So choices that are made for the system behind to remove, what is considered not proper. So I think it's a longer-term change. Right. So unless there is a direct for example, I saw somebody say this is not the Lamborghini story with crypto, but I made a loan in DeFi to buy the car for my family, and he put a collateral in crypto, and I got this stable coin I used to buy the car, and he avoided the bank completely. So this is something that made me think banks are in a dangerous place moment, because until it was cryptocurrency, who cares? But when financial services are decentralized, and this is practically happening today. Tomorrow we're going to have other things, insurance for the car that can be automatically, or insurance for, let's say the car is regulated, but insurance for my dog that goes out that can hurt somebody, this can be decentralized, and I can purchase it following mathematical algorithm and not a promise signed by somebody, then probably people are going to choose that, right? So it is a matter of options. They're going to be present.
So really, it's the forces of centralization, decentralization are sort of clashing, and it's just starting, and we'll probably arrive at some balance that, you know, the market forces will determine what that balance is, and maybe regionally it's not the same, because obviously, I mean, as you mentioned, if you live in a country that there's a political dictatorship or hyperinflation, obviously you have a larger incentive to look into cryptocurrencies or other decentralized processes versus living, for example, where I am in Switzerland, or where you are in Singapore, where everything works to the point that Robert De Niro says it's too perfect in Switzerland. And I don't know if you know this official Swiss tourism ad where Robert Federer calls De Niro and tells him to come here for a film, and he is like, you know, it's so boring in Switzerland, it's too perfect.
Probably the motivation are different place by place, and you know, there are gonna be things that are available only here, things that are available only there. Ultimately, the final user is gonna use a mobile app without really knowing what's happening behind it, right? It's just offering the access and offering the option. A centralized system has an ownership, as somebody making money out of it, so there is a much more incentive to promote and you know, to arrive to the final user. Real decentralized systems that do not belong to one person in specific, but are really decentralized, they run on volunteer, on word of mouth, and because there is no institution that promote the service, right?
Roberto, before closing, I want to touch upon what I see as the big trend, and you also mentioned it, and it's all about the next wave of decentralizing organizations, the DAO. Wyoming State in the US recently passed a law where they categorize DAO as a special part or a special case of a limited liability corporation. Now, Wyoming has always been innovative. They were the first that created legally LLCs in the US, and it took the other states more than 10 years to accept it. And now probably Switzerland will follow with legalizing DAO as a legal entity. I don't know if they will follow the same thinking. Do you see the Monetary Authority of Singapore considering this soon? How do you see this aspect?
Honestly, I'm very far from the political aspect of things. I'm very technical. I can tell you if something is resistant to an attack or not. But the only thing I can say is this: when torrent came up and people start, you know, distributing music or movies via torrent, the major of music and movies, they had two options, right? One was to look at the technology and say, look, we have a distribution system maintained by the people themselves, and we can arrive to sell our content to the most far village in the, you know, in at the end of the world. And or they say, oh my God, people is pirating, let's lobby the government to get people arrested. So at the end, they didn't stop the torrent. They miss a huge opportunity to monetize a system that people created by themselves. And they look very bad at the end, because they gave hundreds of years of prison time to little kids that were making a few copies of something correctly wrong. They did something wrong, but they had an opportunity there. Banks with blockchain had a mixed approach. But a lot of banks start saying, Bitcoin is bad, blockchain is good, let's invest in this technology, let's do experiment. And they understood that when something is peer-to-peer, is decentralized, is a lost battle trying to close it down. Now, the specific of considering a DAO, a limited liability company, to me remains if there is somebody claiming to be the owner or somebody monetizing out of the DAO. But if it's a piece of code that is free in the internet, like in a blockchain, and nobody is in control or nobody is monetizing it. I remember a smart contract that people they want to catch a flight can buy an insurance. The smart contract was looking at the cancellation of flight. If the flight was canceled or delayed, automatically pay out a premium to the person. And if this had no owner, so nobody claimed the ownership of the code, and there is nobody monetizing, but it's a system that self-sustain. Okay, who is, yes, I consider a limited liability company, but if somebody has a problem, who they're gonna sue, right? Is very difficult to identify. So I don't know how they approach this thing, if it is only a possible business format for somebody or not. So I have no idea. I'm prepared. I'm not prepared in this thing. I can guess.
No,
But...
it's too early for us to tell. And as you said, it's clear that institutions like banks and regulators are realizing that they can't shut down, or they would actually empower if they shut down all these open source processes and codes and new ways of organizing. And it's better to try to retrofit them in the system. And I guess this is an evolution that we will be part of it and see how it evolves. Well, thank you so much, Roberto, for being with us. I will share, of course, your not only your book and also the blockchain, so anybody listening to us can check out your book and interactively participate through the QR codes that you have embedded.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you very much for having me, and until next time.